Welcome back to Orange Nation, our artist of the day, the Goo Goo Dolls. It's going to be tough. Did you Google if the
I did not.
Google the Goo Goos? You didn't?
About whether or not they're Bills fans, I did not.
I'll do it during this.
I was going to say, you could do that while I conduct this interview.
While the professionals are speaking?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so you go away for 10 minutes as we bring on Rich DeMarco, the voice of Army football. Rich, thanks so much for coming on. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you guys?
We're doing well. Thanks for asking. Let's talk about this Army team. And, as Paulie and I have mentioned throughout the week, this isn't the typical, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. We've seen this team, operate out of the shotgun and throw the ball a little bit more. Why now with this change, Rich? I'm curious how this change has come about.
And you talk to Jeff Monk, and really it's been born over the past several years, and the continual rule changes that really cut down on cut blocking and blocking outside the box. It's really made it, and if you looked at Army's film last year, made it almost impossible for a pitch on the outside to be able to spring any of these runners. So I believe, when Army's looking at that, Jeff Monken thinks, hey, the way we've been running the triple option is really something that's being phased out by the rules rather than any coach's decisions. Have to figure a way to do things differently. So we brought in Drew Thatcher, who was the offensive coordinator at Nebraska Kearney, and ran an offense where, as people like to say, it's like running the option out of the shotgun. It's heavy on the quarterback running the football, and it really tries to open up opportunities down the field with the pass, which then hopefully will make it easier for pitches and inside handoffs out of the shotgun to run the football.
This isn't one of those things where you just snap your fingers, right? And all of a sudden it's working and clicking and functioning on all cylinders. I'm sure there's a transition involved. Where are they kind of in that process of getting to the point where this becomes second nature to them? And they're only 3 games into the season.
And, they feel good after the last 2 games, which really getting it going against Delaware State, but obviously taking into account the level of the opponent. Then the performance on the road at UTSA, a team which is, 23 wins over the last 2 years, won their conference 2 years in a row. But you make a good point about where they are in the adjustment phase of this offense. If you go back to the Louisiana Monroe game and watch that game, the Army offense looked really out of sync. It literally looked like a team that was running an offense for the first time in a game. And we were talking about it on the air last week and just offline that, Army's one of those teams that really would have benefited if there was one preseason game in college football, right, to get the kinks out, do it against a live team, a live opponent. But unfortunately, that first game against ULM was the first time they ran the offense against a different colored jersey, different opponent, and it was tough. So Army got it going week 2. I would say probably the first month of this season was going to be an adjustment, so we should be right around turning the corner. Every game gets more comfortable with the offense, and hopefully the results continue.
I do want to ask you about head coach Jeff Monken. I know he recently, just within the last week, got this new contract extension, and you look at his results over the course of last 7 years. 5 of those 7, he won 8 or more games. He's had just 1 losing record in the last 7 years. That was in 2019. Can you speak to the job that he has done, with this football program, and again has built a consistent winner week in and week out?
And quite simply, if you look at Army history and college football history, it's the longest run of sustained success since Red Blake. You got to go back to the 1940s and 1950s. And, we have a radio crew where we have a lot of folks that have been around Army football a long time, namely our color commentator, Dean Darling, who's been with the program for 45 years. And even in that time, right, this is probably the longest sustained run of success with a coach that we've seen in that time in generations. So when you think about the changing landscape of college football, how with the rules, it's so hard to keep the option going with transfer and NIL rules, how that's really tough for the service academies in regards to the benefits that come from those things. It's really remarkable what Jeff Monken has done, and I think it's great for everyone. I often say there's no better fit for a coach and a program than Jeff Monken at Army. And I think for all of us associated with the program, it's great to see that relationship is going to continue.
In terms of the personnel that SU fans are going to see inside the Dome tomorrow, I guess it starts with Bryson Daly, their quarterback, leads them in rushing, obviously leads them in passing as well. What does he bring to the table in terms of his skill set?
Really last couple of weeks, it's just been a confident Bryson Daly. Struggled in the first game against Louisiana Monroe, accounted for 5 touchdowns against Delaware State. I think last week against UTSA, look, that's a tough environment. We can talk a lot about the Dome, and probably good for Army to have that experience of quieting what was a pretty raucous crowd at the Alamo Dome 1 week ago. And Bryson led Army on 2 long drives in the first quarter, really quieted that crowd, took them out of the game, and just playing with a confidence. And, there's a lot of decisions for the quarterback in this offense, when to hand off, when to keep the ball, and an increasing need to throw the football. So his confidence and him being a dual threat has been probably the biggest things over the past couple of weeks.
As you're getting ready to call this game, curious to get your thoughts on this Syracuse squad and what stands out to you about the Orange.
Well, I think the defense stands out to me, number one, and the defense coordinator, Rocky Long. And, we've heard about Rocky Long for a long time, no pun intended. You go back to the 2017 Armed Forces Bowl when Army faced San Diego State, and Rashad Penny had one of the great bowl games, really, in recent history, and Army was able to win that game. I think San Diego State ran just like 31 plays in that game. It was just a crazy finish and a crazy game. So I think the defense and what Rocky Long brings to the table is going to be a big challenge. I also think offensively, and we've been talking all week to the Army players about Garrett Schrader, about Dino Babers. And I'll tell you one thing, aside from all the X's and O's, the things Dino Babers had to say about Army and West Point, so complimentary, so respectful, I know that kind of permeated through the Army football program. And he's someone that I followed and admired for a long time. And it's really cool to hear just some sincere words from the opposing coach about Army and West Point football.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, too, because that stood out to me this week as well. And, Dino comes from a military family, and it did seem genuine to me as well. It wasn't just lip service. I know it does mean a lot to him. It is Military Appreciation Day inside the Carrier Dome, JMA Wireless Dome tomorrow. And it isn't just lip service. It's something that certainly means a lot, not only to Dino, but to this university. All right, Rich, lay out a blueprint for me on how Army makes this a second-half game and gives themselves a chance going into that fourth quarter.
Well, just look back to last week against UTSA. Army with a clean sheet, no turnovers and no penalties. Number one, Army can't beat itself. So those two things have to be, if not zero, pretty close to zero. Army has to not give up the big play on defense. I think they're conscious of what Schrader can do throwing the ball and then even running it in some key spots like we saw last week against Purdue. Offensively, Army has to control the clock. Yes, they are running shotgun. They're throwing the ball more. Bottom line is they're still running the ball a ton. Army has to run the ball and do that successfully. And like anything, don't have third and longs, those type of things. Jeff Traylor said Army played a perfect game last week against UTSA. It's got to be close to that in how Army executes here tomorrow.
And just Rich, last question as I look at this schedule. Syracuse tomorrow, Boston College on October 7th. They've got LSU on October 21st. They're playing some of the big boys. What are the thoughts with this particular schedule? And I guess what is the goal this year for Army football?
Well, it's a tough schedule. Probably the toughest one since I don't know, you probably have to go back 10, 15 years. There's a 5-game stretch that everyone thought was going to be very critical that began with the game at UTSA. It was at UTSA, at Syracuse, bye week, then home BC, home Troy, which won its conference last year. Now Troy has struggled a little bit this year, and then on the road at LSU. Army's got to get out of those 5 games healthy, and at the very least with a couple of wins. So got one win against UTSA, and hopefully for Army, another one tomorrow up at the JMA Wireless Dome.
All right, Rich, thanks so much for coming on. We appreciate it. Enjoy your trip to Syracuse, and hopefully we can talk again down the road.
Would love to. Hey, you guys do a great job. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, Rich, for coming on. Rich DeMarco, the voice of Army football.
We do a great job, Steve. He is correct.
Do you have an answer for us on Goo Goo Dolls?
The Goo Goo Dolls are Bills fans.
Of course they are. Of course they are.
I saw the Goo Goo Dolls at Club Chameleon. Remember that place?
Yeah, that was a while ago.
1990, October 8th, 1995 was the show. I had to look it up.
Was the place packed, or is it before they were?
It was
super
before
famous?
they were big.
Yeah. All right.
And it was also one of their soft songs had just come out. I don't know the sequence of their hits, so there were a lot of people there that were a little taken aback before they were like. They were,
yeah,
right.
Okay.
I Googled the Goo Goos.
Yes, thank you for doing
it. It would be called a Goo Goo Google.
award-winning. We'll hit a timeout here. We'll wrap up hour number 1 next on ESPN Radio.
Tomorrow